What's going on, guys? It's your boy Jacob from Topside MMA, and today I'm coming at you with my best bets video for UFC Qatar. We're going to go over every single fight, and I'm going to tell you guys my favorite bets for every single one. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Now, first up, we got Marek Bujlo versus Denzel Freeman. Now, this is one of those fights I just didn't want a whole lot on it. Both of these guys are super green, you know. This wasn't a super hard fight for me in terms of the pick. We got to go with Denzel Freeman. He's had a lot more high-level experience, and although not the highest level of competition, not quite UFC level caliber, it's still a lot higher than the guys that Marek Bujlo is fighting. I mean, he's absolutely running through bums in the regional scene, and although it does look good, it's just not enough confidence for me to get behind him as an underdog when we really haven't seen him face any adversity at all. If you're gonna put anything on this, I'd probably go Denzel Freeman money line and just hope that Marek Bujlo isn't any special talent. But for the most part, besides that, I'd rather just take this one off, sit back, kick my feet up. Next up, we got Nurullo Aliev versus Shem. This is the same type of thing. You know, we know Nurullo Aliev is going to want to implement a very high wrestling heavy game plan. We know he's going to be shooting for takedowns. He's going to want it to get a top position. He's going to want to control Shem the entire fight. And it's probably going to be not the most eventful fight, you know. So I'm looking at this one. I was considering possibly a Nurullo Aliev by decision. You could do that. Maybe Nurullo Aliev and over 2.5, maybe over 1.5 as a little same game parlay action there. It's just nothing really stood out to me enough to put something on this. You know, this is one of those. It could go a lot of different ways. You know, Shem, he's not just some random bum. Although 12-1, the record might look a little bit better than he actually is. He's very reliant on his wrestling and his grappling. I don't want to say he's sub or bust, but against a guy like Nurullo Aliev, Aliev's definitely going to have the better wrestling, maybe not the better submission abilities, but we've seen Aliev been able to deal with some submission threats, get out of them. So I assume he's going to be able to do the exact same thing against Shem. Honestly, if you wanted to parlay up Aliev in his money line, it's probably not the worst. It's just something at minus 300 at this point. It's a bit too far for me. I'd much rather, if I were to do anything, I'd much rather go with the Nurullo Aliev, maybe over 1.5, maybe over 2.5 rounds, something like that. But anyway, next up, we got Ismail Naurdiev versus Ryan Loder. I was looking at the Ryan Loder plus 7.5 alternate spread at minus 185. That's not too bad on the value. And we know that Naurdiev, the longer this fight goes on, the more he's going to slow down and the less dangerous he's going to be. If Naurdiev's getting a finish in this fight, it's likely going to be a round 1 or a round 2 knockout. I'd say probably a knockout within the first round and a half. That's probably where he would get the spot, because the longer he goes, the more he starts to slow down. He's going to lose that punch or that power in his punches. And we know a guy like Ryan Loder, he's a good wrestler. He can really control guys on the mats. The longer this goes on, it'll help Ryan Loder. So I think if you're going to play this, you could do maybe an Naurdiev finish early or maybe a Ryan Loder late. I was looking at the plus 7.5 alternate spread, like I have here at minus 185. I was also trying to find some type of a prop for his takedowns. I just didn't see any lines that were coming out that really in my attention. From the books that I was looking at, there was really nothing out there for me to even consider. So I don't even know what the lines are looking like for his takedown props. Haven't been able to find anything. It's something I was considering, but obviously I got to get this video out with this card being in Qatar. You know, the time difference and whatnot. Normally Saturday mornings, everything's completely out. But yeah, a little Friday night video. It's not as full. So yeah, in terms of this one though, I got nothing. I was just potentially looking at that plus 7.5 alternate spread. But next up, we got Bekzat Almakhan versus Aleksandre Topuria. Same thing here. You know, I was considering the Bekzat Almakhan plus 7.5 alternate spread. It's just one of those I haven't actually pulled the trigger on it. Similar to this last fight too with any of these bets. If anyone of you guys are new here, anything that I have in white like this is something that I have not placed. Anything with green, I don't think I have. We've gone over any green ones yet. We'll get there. I promise. But any of the ones in white are bets that I just considered, but I haven't actually placed. Any of the bets in green are ones that I've actually placed. So yeah, this one is a bet that I was considering, the Bekzat Almakhan plus 7.5 alternate spread. It's kind of funny because both of these lines are actually at one point, because I put this in my spreadsheet about, I don't know, like a day ago. I was looking at these. The Bekzat Almakhan plus 7.5 alternate spread and the Aleksandre Topuria plus 7.5 alternate spread were the exact same on the odds. I thought it was pretty funny, especially because we've seen Topuria finish before, even though it was like 10 years ago. But anyway, I just thought normally that even in pick'em fights, that's usually not the case. So it was kind of interesting to see, at least for me. I'm not used to seeing that. So you could take it either way if you really wanted to. This is just one of those. I think there's too many unknowns for both guys. There's too many, I don't want to say red flags, just stones left unturned for both of these guys. This is going to be a real proving point for both of them to kind of get a judge on how good either guy is. This is one of those fights for a pick'em. You could just flip the coin and live with it. You know, maybe it's a dog or pass where you take the underdog or you don't take anything at all. You could do that, but for me, I'd rather just sit back and watch this one and not have anything on it. It's a little bit too risky for me, too many unknowns. But next up, also with the poll, you guys voted on Bekzat Almakhan, so we are riding with them. Keeping the pick. We're not pick flipping. We're keeping the pick on Bekzat. So shout out to you guys. 130 votes. That was not too long ago, 6 hours ago too. So shout out to you guys who voted. Appreciate it. And we're sticking with our boy Bekzat for the pick. But next up, we got Abdul, Rakhman, Yakhyaev versus Rafael Cerquiera. Now, see, something in green. Get this actually placed. I took this little flyer sprinkle. Abdul, Rakhman, Yakhyaev to win in the first 60 seconds at plus 870. I'm only human. It just, I had to. 0.05 units. I have this placed. Plus 870. I actually saw this on FanDuel. So yeah, I placed this one a couple days ago. It just seems like that's actually a realistic outcome. I know it's kind of insane. First 60 seconds, pretty nuts. We just saw Abdul Rakhman Yakhyaev. We just saw him do that against arguably the same level of competition. He comes through, he runs the guys through, he gets a ton of finishes in the first round. I mean, the only time he went to a decision ever was against a guy who I believe has only been finished once since then, so it's not like he's just not able to get finishes. The guy is extremely powerful, he's fast, he's explosive, and he's at only 24 years old too, so he's going to get better and better with every fight. He's only going to be more explosive than ever going into this one, and against a guy like Rafael Cerquiera, chin problems, bad cardio, I mean, he's just asking to be put out in the spot. It's going to be a bad day for Rafael Cerquiera. So I have that bet placed, and I also have Abdul Rakhman Yakhyaev to win in under half a round, plus 180. Abdul Rakhman Yakhyaev, you look through this guy's record, he is getting finishes. He's getting guys out of there in the first half a round. It's absolutely insane how fast he runs through guys. Yes, they are regional level bums. Rafael Cerquiera ain't too far off of that. I mean, yes, he's technically in the UFC, hasn't had a win, and he's getting starched by everyone with the pulse, Julius Walker, death gas, so he couldn't get the finish there. But besides that, he's getting ran right through. And I think a guy like Yakhyaev is going to do the exact same thing. Plus 180 under half a round. I'm only human. There's a chance this might go a little bit longer, but I'm liking both of these, honestly. I think it's actually decent value. Plus money on a minus 2,000 price tag. I'll take it every day of the week. So anyway, next up, we got Alex Perez versus Asu Almabayev. Now, I just got a small, tiny little play. Asu Almabayev, round one only, any other outcome, no action. That means if this fight goes beyond the first round, you get a complete refund. It doesn't matter what happens if it goes beyond the first round. That's why it's round one only, any other outcome, no action, aka refund. I got it at minus 190, 0.25 units on this one, just because I know we've seen Alex Perez submitted in the first round and finished in the first round as a whole numerous times. So that outcome is definitely live here. Him coming off of a bad injury, there's a chance he could get finished. You know, if his heart's not in it, if he doesn't want to be here, he's flying halfway across the world. I mean, there are a lot of reasons why this could go south for him early on in this fight. We saw it too with the weigh-ins. He didn't look the best. You know, he looked a little bit slow, a little bit lethargic. Not a good look from Alex Perez. Not saying that's a huge factor and saying, oh, well, he looked a little sleepy. Fade. It's not like that. It's just in the sense of Asu Almabayev, although he's not the most dangerous finisher, you know, he's not starching guys, knocking them out. He's not really wrapping up submissions in the first round. He's a real chain wrestler. He wants to land takedown after takedown after takedown, which doesn't often result in a lot of finishes. I think if anyone's getting finished in the first round, it's likely going to be Alex Perez. Maybe he gets injured. Maybe he gets subbed, like it's happened time and time again. It could happen. I don't really think it will. I'm expecting a refund on this, but for minus 190, we've seen Perez finish in the first round multiple times. We don't see that from Asu, so I'm willing to take a little risk. Minus 190, quarter unit. Next up, we got Nick Dalby versus Saygid Izagakhmaev. Now, we're going to talk about this one a little bit later on. For those who know the flow of these videos, you guys already know. We're going to talk about it in a little bit, though, but in terms of the singles, got nothing on this one as of right now. And yeah, I definitely won't have anything on it because we got some action later on we're going to talk about here in a minute. But next up, we got Bogdan Grad versus Luke Riley. Now, I got a small play. I got Bogdan Grad decision only, KO or sub no action, meaning the only way this bet wins or loses is if this fight goes to a decision. If there's a knockout or a sub, no action, aka if there's a knockout or a sub, you get a refund. I got plus 195, 0.1 units on this. Just a very small little play on this. I just think there's a real possibility that Bogdan Grad could really go for a heavy wrestling game plan, rack up takedowns. And I think if he's able to do that, he could definitely secure it on the scorecards. It's just a matter of if he gets knocked out or not. That it could happen. It definitely could happen. I also have a small play too. Bogdan Grad plus 7.5 alternate spread, minus 125, 0.15 units on this one. After I saw the weigh-ins, I will say, seeing the size difference, Luke Riley looked a lot bigger than I thought he was going to. I'm a bit reluctant. You know, if I could go back on this Bogdan Grad plus 7.5, I probably would. At this point, it's in, so it's in. Just letting it ride because it's a small play, 0.15 units. But I do like the Bogdan Grad decision only. If you guys are going to play anything on this fight at all, I think the Bogdan Grad decision only is the best play because you're basically taking his money line, but at the same time, you're also covering yourself in case he gets knocked out. Because we've seen Luke Riley has really good cardio. We've seen Bogdan Grad start to slow down a bit at times. You know, we've seen in his fight against Michael Aswell, that's his name. Against Michael Aswell, he really slowed down in the later third round. It was pretty sloppy in that third round. Although Bogdan Grad does have pretty decent cardio. I mean, when he did slow down, it was when he pushes a super high pace. There is that concern in the back of my mind, though, of like Luke Riley does have really good cardio. So if there's a chance in the third round, if Bogdan Grad's death gassed from wrestling, winning the first 2 rounds even, there's a chance Luke Riley might be able to come back. I don't know. Anything could happen in this fight. Luke Riley, UFC debut. There are a lot of questions to be answered in this fight, so we'll have to see. In total, I just got 0.25 quarter unit on this entire fight, so I'm not really too invested in the spot. And it's one of those two where if it does go to a decision, let's say he loses a decision, I highly doubt he would get 30-27. You know what I mean? So the plus 7.5 at that point would cash. So it's like one of those, it's not even a hedge. It's just the most I'm expecting to win or lose on this fight is really not a whole lot. So taking it light on this one because it's a bit of a mystery how this might go. But anyway, next up we got Tagir Ulanbekov versus Kyoji Horiguchi. And now on this one, I will say, after the weigh-ins, Tagir Ulanbekov looks absolutely massive compared to Horiguchi. So there's a chance Tagir would come out here, absolutely dominate Horiguchi in the wrestling. And I can't say I'd be mind blown at all at a result like that. It's just the thing that worries me about this is we have seen Tagir struggle in the past. You know, I had him in a parlay against Azat Maxim where he's a big favorite, and he made that fight a lot more competitive than he needed to. And I will say that I don't want to say buyer's remorse, but on one hand, I'm like, now he's going against a guy, Kyoji Horiguchi, who was, 7-1 in the UFC. He's only lost to Demetrius Johnson. These guys are basically the same age, and now they're going to have a stylistically similar matchup where we know Horiguchi, his chin's not great. He's not going to want to strike all that much. We know Tagir Ulanbekov, he's a grappler bust. So this is going to be a whole lot of grappling, a whole lot of wrestling back and forth for 15 minutes. Now, they are in the side of the world that will favor Ulanbekov if this is a close split decision. So I do have that thought in the back of my mind of like, okay, if this is tied 1-1 going into the third round and it's very close, I would be extremely surprised if Tagir ended up losing. I don't know. There's just a chance in the back of my mind. I'd rather just say, you know what, for minus 200 at Tagir Ulanbekov, he never makes his fights where he looks like a huge favorite unless he's going against someone who really can't grapple at all. Kyoji, he can grapple. So I do have that respect for his grappling game. He can wrestle. He can grapple. So this could look closer than it ends up, I don't know, looking in terms of like the lines and where they're at. But this is one of those where I'd rather just say, you don't have to bet on every fight. I can live with this one off. And I got a small little something we'll talk about at the very end that I got a couple fights in as like a little for fun. But anyway, in terms of like actual real bets, I got nothing on this one. But next up, we got our boy Shamil Gaziev going against Waldo Cortes-Acosta. I was pissed in the first matchup when Gaziev was going against Sergey Spivak. I had a nice little play. Spivak sub only at minus 175. Who the hell is Shamil Gaziev submitting? That was such a good line. I was so happy about that one. I took off the risk because I didn't want you guys to think I had anything placed on it in terms of, obviously, it got canceled. But I only had like a quarter unit on that. But I was so pumped about that line. Minus 175 was like an absolute godsend. Spivak ended up pulling out. But it is what it is. Now we got Waldo Cortes-Acosta versus Shamil Gaziev. I will say, I got a small little bet, quarter unit on Waldo Cortes-Acosta, minus 142. If they had a full training camp to prepare for each other, Waldo Cortes-Acosta would have been the play of the week. I guarantee it. It's just I do have that worry. He's stepping up on 2 days' notice, flying across the world to take this fight against Shamil Gaziev, who's had a whole training camp. He's been preparing for this for the last, 8+ weeks. So I do have a small worry about, okay, we know Waldo does have good durability. He does have good cardio, but still, flying across the world, there are some concerns, and I think that's why this line is a bit tighter than it would be. It definitely is a bit tighter than it would be normally if he had a whole training camp for this fight. So minus 142, I'm like, you know what, screw it. Got a quarter unit on this, I'll take it. I thought about doubling down a half unit, and I might, depending on how the earlier fights go. Just for now, I got a quarter unit. Don't want to really overextend on Waldo Cortes-Acosta, 2 days notice across the world, but had to have something on him. I genuinely think he should beat a guy like Shamil Gaziev because I think this is likely going to stand on the feet, back and forth striking. We saw Gaziev was not able to handle just a simple jab from a guy like Rosenstruck. We know Waldo Cortes-Acosta is a good boxer, so he can pump a jab for 15 minutes with ease, even if he's stepping up on 2 days notice, and that honestly should be enough to beat a guy like Shamil. So anyway, next up, if you guys like the content, or drop a comment for your boy. It really helps with the algorithm. I was going to say, if you like the comment, drop a content. If you like the content, drop a comment. It really helps with the algorithm, and I appreciate it a bunch. So let's keep it going. Next up, Jack Hermanson versus Mitsabek Oralbai. This is a similar one. I got a little something at the very end we'll talk about, just a small, tiny little play. But in terms of actually any bets on this one, I really was afraid, not afraid, but I guess I didn't love, I don't even know how to say it. It's not that I didn't love what I saw from Hermanson. It's just that it almost scared me off of a bet from Orobai, in the sense of, we saw Orobai, he's been a bit of a weight bully in this past, where he's been weighing over the limit. He's had to do catch weights. It's been a lot of different situations and circumstances with Orobai to where I can't have a ton of confidence in just his raw skill set. It's like when he can't really out bully people, and he can't be just the tougher, grittier guy like we saw against, what's his name? Rebecki, with Taus Rebecki. He loses, So although 14-2 doesn't happen often, what we have seen in the UFC is when he can't really be that grittier guy, the bigger guy to just use raw manpower, he's struggled at times. So against a guy like Jack Hermanson, he looked absolutely huge out there. We've seen his grappling game before. Yeah, he's had moments of times where he's been caught, like even against a Roman Dolidze. It was more he got caught in, I think it was a calf slicer, and at that point he got ground and pounded out. But it wasn't more so his chin or his grappling. He just got caught by a very tricky grappler. Do we think Orobai is on the level of a Roman Dolidze? It's hard to say. He's very young, so I don't want to completely write it off, because at the same time, Orobai is probably going to get better and better. It's just for the time being, this is one of those, I'd much rather just sit back, kick my feet up, and not have anything on this, as opposed to having a minus 200 sweater of a bet on Orobai for 15 minutes against a crazy Jack Hermanson cutting down. So with the weight discrepancies between these two, one coming down, one coming up, there's just too many red flags, too many uncertainties. I'd rather pass. But anyway, next up, we got Volkan Ozdemir versus Alonzo Menafield. I was considering the Volkan Ozdemir by KO at plus 125. The value's not great. I will say the value is not great at all. However, I feel like it's the most likely outcome of this fight. I am pretty decently confident in Ozdemir to get it done this week. I really do think he should get the job done against Alonzo Menafield. We'll talk about this one more at the very end, because I got a little bit more action on this card, or this fight in particular, at the very end we'll talk about. But yeah, I do like Volkan Ozdemir. I don't hate the KO prop. You could do maybe a KO 1-2, because we've seen Menafield finish multiple times in the first round, so it could happen. We'll have to see, though. But anyway, next up, we got Belal Muhammad versus Ian Gary. Now, I got nothing on this. I think at damn near minus 300 for Ian Gary, it's a bit disrespectful to Belal and all he's done as a champion. I mean, well, didn't really do a whole lot, but he is a former champion. You got to give him that praise and give him that respect at least. So to have Ian Gary as a 3-1 favorite, I don't love it, especially if we make this fight go super close. If it's a back and forth fight for 15 minutes, goes to the scorecards, you know what part of the world we're at. You see Belal's last name. It could be a little bit dicey on these scorecards. And I think it really comes down to how much Belal wants it. You know what I mean? If he wants to really go for this and he cares about winning above anything else, he could definitely out wrestle Ian Gary for 15 minutes. I won't be mind blown. It's just if he falls into this game of playing to Ian Gary's game, like kind of falling into his trap, similar to how Leon Edwards was against Carlos Prates. Carlos Prates starts chirping him, calling him out. He stops wrestling. He stands and strikes, and he gets caught. So will Belal Muhammad stick to a smart game plan? It's hard to say. So I don't really even want to take the risk at that point for minus 300. I don't want to put that on Ian Gary, but at plus 2 something, I can't put trust in Belal to stick to a smart game plan when we've seen him not do that in his last fight. So this is just a red flag of a fight for me. I'd rather just not have anything on this one at all. But anyway, finally, main fight of the night. We got Arman Tsarukyan versus Dan Hooker. Now, I got nothing on this one as of right now, but give me 30 seconds and we're going to talk about the parlays, because we definitely have some action on our boy Arman Tsarukyan. But anyway, for the Qatar play of the week in the parlays. Also, really quick, I wanted to talk about this. This is interesting with this card, is that with 10+ year age gaps, the younger fighter wins at about 72% of the time. In this card in particular, we have 3 examples of fighters at a 10-year age gap, and we have 1 example with Belal and Ian Gary where it's a 9-year age gap. So not quite, but close enough. This is not that common. These type of huge age discrepancies are not this common. You normally don't see about 4 in a 14 fight card. It's not that common. So realistically, the way I'm looking at this is between these 4, 3 of them are likely to go with a statistic. You know what I mean? About 72% of the time, Belal versus Ian Gary, about that 10-year mark. Not quite. It's actually for a 9-year mark, I believe it's about 68% of the time. So, I mean, close enough. So let's say arguably we got 4 here. Realistically, at least 2. That's why I got the ones in green. I think obviously Yakhyaev is the clear one. Yep, he's gonna be the one. At least one of them. And then after that, I think Saygid is like the more likely second. But besides that, between Hermanson, Orobai, or Belal Muhammad, Ian Gary, I think one of these likely hits, and I think one of them likely misses. Just statistically looking at this, who, in which way, and how? Who knows? It's something I wanted to point out. This is not that common, so I had to put this in here for you guys. So hopefully it helps with your decision making, because in terms of the numbers, this is not the most common predicament we get ourselves into. But anyway, in terms of the play of the week, we got 2 this week. I went back and forth on it for a while. It was getting late, and I was like, holy shit, I need to stop thinking about this and just get the video out. The first one I got is Tsarukyan and Abdul Rakhman Yakhyaev in under half a round, or under 1.5 rounds, and a parlay, minus 154, 1 unit on that. And I really think, in terms of Tsarukyan, I do think he's a very confident pick this week. He really should be levels ahead of a Dan Hooker. Dan Hooker, at this point, we know he's not touching the belt. We know he's a journeyman. He's very tough, very game. He's going to fight tooth and nail with anyone, and I love Dan Hooker. I'm a huge Dan Hooker fan. It's just at this point, against a guy like Tsarukyan, beat Charles Oliveira, was going to fight Islam for the belt. Going down to Dan Hooker, this is a real drop in competition, and I just don't see it really going bad for him. I don't see a real path for Dan Hooker to win in this type of a spot, other than Tsarukyan getting caught by something lucky, maybe death gassing. Other than that, we've seen Dan Hooker put out before. Guys like Michael Chandler put him out. So, they're like lower level competition have put him out before. We've seen lapses in his game. Even guys like Gamrot hurting him. I think Tsarukyan is just so massive and strong and physically imposing and explosive. And he has the wrestling and the striking with the power. It's like, I just don't see a realistic way for Dan Hooker to win this fight. So, I like Arman in the spot quite a bit. And Abdul Rakhman Yakhyaev, that's our boy. This is more of a... this is a bit of a both. This is why I like this spot quite a bit, because it's, on one hand, we're taking Yakhyaev as like, okay, we know he's durable. We know he's explosive. We know he's dangerous with his hands. We know he's dangerous on the ground. We know he's getting guys out of there. We've seen it time and time again, even on the Contender Series, getting guys out of there quick. He's explosive, and he's only 24 years old. So everything that we've seen from him in the past, it's only going to get better. And now who is he going against in his UFC debut? I'd say, honestly, a bottom 5 fighter in the entire UFC. Call me crazy. You got a real talented prospect who's been tested in every single area, who's extremely dangerous, and a finisher, going against one of the worst guys in the entire roster with terrible durability, terrible gas tank, and it's basically sub or bust. And even we saw when he fought Julius Walker, who was completely death gassed, he gets dropped by him when he's death gassed, and he can't even finish him. So it's like, if this goes to like the second round and we're at like 2 minutes and 32 seconds and it misses, I'm going to be pissed. I'm not going to lie. This is also one of those where it's like, I can like, if this were to somehow miss, not even the Tsarukyan, I'll be very surprised if that misses. But if this were to somehow go over, I can look myself in the mirror and be like, you know what? This was a good play. After all the evidence we've seen from both guys, I'm comfortable with this. I do like this play quite a lot. I think it's a great play. I think it's a great play of the week. I was contemplating, and that's the first one. I was contemplating for the second one, Volkan Ozdemir versus Alonzo Menafield. I was contemplating just making this its own bet and just saying screw it. But at the same time, I really like this spot. I think if you compare these guys, it's not even the MMA math. It's not even looking at the Carlos Ulberg fights, even though they're pretty drastic. You look, anytime Volkan Ozdemir is going against a high-level striker, he's making it competitive. Even the guys like Big Egg, he's still making it competitive. The Carlos Ulberg fight, they had, in terms of the differential in their significant strikes, it was 96 to 98, I believe. It was two strike difference between that fight. You can just look at the scorecards and say, okay, it was like I think one judge had 29-28. I think the others were 30-27. It was a lot closer than people think. And you look when you see Alonzo Menafield, when he's fought high-level strikers like a Carlos Ulberg, puts him out completely cold. Like within 30 seconds. And even when he's fighting a bit of a lower level of a fighter, not to say it's a bad level fighter, but like a Dustin Jacoby, who's not the elite, more of a gatekeeper type of a range. You can see even in that fight, he's getting worked on the feet. It's just Dustin Jacoby has chin issues. He's able to land big power shots on Jacoby. It's not a skill thing. Skillfully, he was getting completely outworked by Dustin Jacoby. It's just he's landing these big shots that are kind of equalizing the fight for him, and it really secured him in that type of a fight. So you look at a guy like Ozdemir, who is he getting hurt by? Yuri Prohaska is not knocking him out, and who else is knocking him out? Daniel Cormier. Two of the best. So it's like, you look at that and you compare it to Alonzo Menafield. He's going tooth and nail against Jimmy Crute when he was all depressed and didn't want to fight anymore. And you look at other fights like Carlos Ulberg's completely putting him out. You look back in the past, who's he losing to? OSB. Who else did he lose to? William Knight too. I'm like, some of these losses, that William Knight fight too, that was less than 5 years ago. It seems like an eternity ago, but that was 4 years ago. It's just one of those spots where I'm like, you know what? I know people are going to look at the minus 220 and they're going to be like, all right, those are not the best odds. What are you thinking? It's just one of those spots. I think Volkan is just better everywhere. I think he's more durable. He has more power. He's looked better against higher level competition. And his resume is way more stacked. He's fighting guys like Daniel Cormier. He's fighting Big Ank. He's fighting Carlos Oberg, making it extremely competitive. Even against Yuri, he did have his moments. He did get hurt. He did get put out. But still, he was looking good at times. So it's like he's looked good, at least competitive against a much higher level of competition. And you look at Alonzo Menafield, he's going tooth and nail to a split decision against Julius Walker. We've seen Julius Walker couldn't even finish Rafael Cerquiera. His cardio is not good. We know that. And then against Umar C just basically quit. He came out there like a wuss. It wasn't even trying. So Alonzo Menafield was able to have his way. And that's the last thing about this too. We know this is going to be a striking match. Between these two guys, they have had 31 combined fights in the UFC. They each have shot, or they've landed 5 takedowns each. They've both had 5 takedowns. We know they're not going for takedowns. They've had 5 each, and they have an 80% takedown defense. These guys do not want to land takedowns, and they're pretty good at stopping takedowns. So we know this is going to be a back-and-forth striking match, and we've seen Volkan Ozdemir has had way more success against a much higher level of competition compared to Alonzo Menafield. So this seems like a no-brainer for me. I like this quite a bit. Like I said, I had this as a normal bet, but I really think this is a good one to have as a play of the week because it's like, this is one I can stand behind. Sure, there's a chance that Alonzo Menafield could knock him out. Alonzo Menafield has a ton of power in the hands. If he hits you clean, he could knock Ozdemir out. Ozdemir's been knocked out before, but at the same time, Ozdemir hits just as hard, or maybe not quite, but they both have a lot of power. They both have good power. They can both hurt guys. They can both put guys out. We've seen, even against Johnny Walker, Ozdemir knocked his ass out. So it's like we've seen both guys have power. Both guys have been cracked before. It's just, I think Volkan Ozdemir is just a higher level fighter at the end of the day. So I think he should win the spot, and I'm decently confident in that. So got him as the second play of the week. We got 2 this week. But now also, for the other parlays, like I said, we were going to talk about the Saygid, Izagakhmaev, and the Nick Dalby fight later on. I also have a parlay 1 unit of him, Saygid moneyline, and I have Abdul Rakhman Yakhyaev by KO or sub. It's a little bit more encompassing on that second line because I am double dipping on Yakhyaev. You know, I got 2 units on him in terms of these parlays, so I'm riding a little bit on my boy here to get it done inside the distance, but I really just think Rafael Cerquiera is not good. I think Yakhyaev is actually proven to be a pretty promising talent. He should be able to run right through him, so I'm okay with the double dip. But yeah, and also I got Saygid. I like him quite a bit in the spot. You know, from what I've seen of his recent tape, although it was years ago, and I get people are on that, he's been going around the world training with Islam for these camps that he's had. I mean, against JDM, he's in his camp as one of his main training partners. This is the type of guy where I can look at the last 3 years of him taking that off and being like, okay, I'm cool with that. If you're training with the best on planet Earth, I'm fine with you not fighting some random regional bums and won. You know what I mean? Or not to say that they're random regional bums and won. That was probably his best step up in competition. However, it's just, you get what I'm saying. I don't mind him just not taking these fights on random promotions across the world because he's fighting with or training with the best on planet Earth. So at him and his physical prime too, like we talked about with the age gap between some of these fighters, the 10-year age gaps between them, the 10-year, where it's a 72% win rate about. This is one of those where I'm like, okay, I think this is probably a good spot to take Saygid because on one hand, he's training with the best and he's a grappler. You know, we've seen him he's well-rounded. He's not a takedown or bust type of a guy, but he's looking to land takedowns. He's really looking to dominate guys on the ground from what we've seen from his past tape. We've seen Nick Dalby struggle with that. We've seen Nick Dalby struggle with takedowns before in the past, and we see it in his recent wins. It's really when he's outworking guys and when guys really start to death gas. I mean, like Bonfim was winning and then he death gas. So it's like, you look at fights like that where it's like, if he's beating guys when they death gas, we haven't seen Saygid do that. We've seen Saygid go long. I'm not worried about his cardio. So I think as long as he can outlast Dalby, we just saw Dalby get put out brutally. It was a brutal knockout, put out cold. And at 41 years old, Dalby has never been like the most high skill guy. He's just been a tough, nitty gritty guy who can just make it ugly. And I think at 41 years old, coming off of a brutal knockout, that type of a style is just not something you can keep up. And now you're going against one of the best guys, or at least one of the best camps on planet Earth with Team Khabib, all those guys. This seems like one of those spots I can live with this. You know, it kind of reminds me of Patchy Mix versus Jacob Wicklocks. I'm looking at it on paper and I'm like, you know what? if for whatever reason Patchy Mix ends up shitting the bed against Jacob Wicklocks, he had every advantage. Every advantage going for him. I mean, he's the fighter with more experience. He fought the better level of competition. He's already got the UFC out of the way. You know, UFC jitters aren't a thing he has to worry about. He's getting a stylistic match that he wants. Grappler versus grappler. I'm like, this dude has everything going for him. He should totally win this. He obviously didn't win it. But it's one of those where it's like, you know what? If he somehow loses, I think it was a good play, so I can live with it. And then finally, though, I got a little spread parlay going where I got a bunch of guys that I think are very durable. And I think if the off chance they do lose, it's going to be by decision, and they can make it competitive enough to where they can cover that plus 7.5 alternate spread. So we got Asu, we got Tagir, and we got Ian Gary. All those three combined, minus 222, 0.5 units on that one. So got a couple parlays going. And then finally, the very last one that I got is a round robin. These are so hard to include. I was not going to include this one because it's like almost impossible with the tracking because there's no odds. It's like a matter of how many win. But I got a 3-leg round robin where I just basically put all the guys in where I think they should win. But obviously there's likely one or two that are probably going to end up selling. Maybe, maybe not. But it's one of those where I just threw them all in the round robin. I was like, you know what? I got 0.2 units on this. That's it. I don't want anything more, anything less. If for whatever reason it tanks, it is what it is. But if all of them win, it'll be a nice little spot with 0.4 units or 0.41 units coming back in return. But we got Denzel Freeman, Nurullo Aliev, Almabayev, Tagir Ulanbekov, Mitsabek Orobai, and Volkan Ozdemir. Obviously, we got a little double dip with Volkan Ozdemir there. But besides that, we got Denzel Freeman. I think he should win. I just didn't really want to go heavy on him. Nurullo Aliev, I think he should win. I just didn't want to place a whole lot on him. Same with Asu. Asu should win, but we've seen Perez have good defensive wrestling, stopping that in the past. So I was like, don't want to go too crazy. Same with Tagir Ulanbekov. I actually placed this after I saw the weigh-ins. So I was like, okay, he looks huge out there. He should be able to at least keep this one going. He should be able to have some success. Even maybe he doesn't win, but I think he's good enough, and he'll make it close enough to where I think it had some value in this. And same with Mitsabek Orobai. Maybe Hermansson's way too big. Maybe Hermansson's huge strength and the weight, him cutting down, Orobai moving up. Maybe Orobai can't hang. Who knows? But I just think Orobai has the path to win here. Maybe he hurts Hermansson, who we've seen his chin go down. Anything could happen there. And then Volkan Ozdemir, already talked about that one. I like him quite a bit. Whew. I've been going pretty fast with this one. But anyway, guys, if you made it this far, it's completely free to subscribe. It helps a ton with the channel and the growth, and I greatly appreciate it. So thank you guys for all the love on the videos. But finally, here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, we got the whole slate, everything we talked about over this video. What are we at right now? 32 minutes. Try to make this one pretty quick. I've been trying to rapid fire through them. So hopefully it wasn't too long. I know this video is coming out a bit later too, so I'm trying to get it out in time. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for all the love on the videos. Thank you guys so much for the support, the likes, the comments. It all goes a long way, and I really appreciate all the love on the videos. So thank you guys once again for all the support. I'm going to get this video out to you guys ASAP. Let me know your favorite plays. Let me know if you agree with some of these or if you disagree, if stuff you like, stuff you don't like. Let me know in the comments. I greatly appreciate all you guys' feedback and your inputs. Sometimes you guys have some banger bets sometimes in the comments, I will say. Sometimes we cash some community bets. So, but anyway, guys, thank you once again for all the love on the videos. I really appreciate it. Gonna get this one out to you guys here ASAP. But in the meantime, it's your boy Jacob from Topside MMA, and I'm out. So, peace.